Alrighty, my friend. Ready to make some sourdough? Cool, cool, cool. So right now I got my scale out. Got my little paper here, but I'm going to send you the ingredients to do with that. So I'm going to put my bowl right on there. And I'm going to zero it out to get rid of the weight of the bowl. So now it is 0, right? And so for the sourdough, I'm going to put my starter in the bowl first. It's 166 grams of starter. This is my very active, yummy starter that I've got here. And I am going to carefully scoop my starter into the bowl and keep watching the weight because we are doing 166 grams of this. We're getting there. Starter is just flour and water. So as much as we're putting in this bowl, we're going to add back into our jar to cook for another, or to mix together to use for another day. But right now we're just scooping this into the bowl for our loaf today. Getting there, 162, 165, 166, there we go. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So we've got that starter going, and I'll put my lid on it just for now. Later on we will add the flour and water back into that to save for another day in there. So now we're going to zero that back out, and we are going to add 400 grams of lukewarm water. I've already measured this out, but we'll just kind of put it in there so that you could see it. Well, 401, close. And that's okay. You could have 1 gram, plus or minus, is just fine. So now, normally I would like whisk this together because the starter is kind of more of a pancake batter like. You kind of want to really mix that with the warm water, but using a spoon is just fine as well. Great. Alrighty, so now our warm water and our starter are mixed up pretty darn well in there. And so the next thing that we're going to add is the 680 grams of bread flour. I'm going to zero that out again just so you could see. But I have pre-measured this already. But you could just scoop it right from your flour container in there and just watch your measurements. Pretty close, so I'll just kind of, it was 680 in the bowl, so I'll just add a little bit. 680, there you go. Alrighty, so I'm going to zero that out, and I am going to slide this off of there. Can you see it? Yeah. Alrighty. I also have in this little bowl 200 grams of salt, but I am going to wait to put that salt in there because we kind of want the water and the flour and the starter to all kind of mingle. Sometimes the salt can kind of reduce the rise a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix this up until they call it a shaggy dough. Mixing it up, call it a shaggy dough. And what a shaggy dough means is that, you know, it's kind of lumpy. It's still got kind of those dry lumps of flour in there. But we just kind of want to make sure that all the pieces are moistened so you don't have any really dry, flaky flour in there. And so you can see that it's kind of shaggy. It's kind of got little pieces kind of hanging off there. So just kind of mix that all up so that any dry, loose flour pieces are all kind of incorporated. My fingers are clean, no worries. You know us labbies, we gotta have clean fingers. That's where that strong spoon comes into play, because it's kind of hard to work with right now because it's really kind of dry flour in there. It's a very sticky dough at this point, so it's kind of hard to get your hands in there because your hands will end up full of sticky dough. So usually a good strong spoon really does the trick. And you can get all of your frustrations out of the day on the dough. It's dough therapy. Alrighty, that's looking pretty darn good. If you can make sure that all the stuff is scraped off the sides. See how sticky it is? It's kind of sticky. And if some's still stuck to the spoon, that's fine. No biggie. Alrighty, so now what we're going to do is we're going to put some plastic wrap on this, and we're going to let it sit for 30 minutes. And then after we let it sit for 30 minutes, we're going to take that spoon and mix just like we did before. Give you an idea of what that looks like. Some sourdough bakers do stretch and folds where they pull it out and they stretch it and fold it over. That's a big pain in the butt, and it's very sticky. So when I do my stretch and folds, I kind of just pull it from the side, bring it over, turn it, smush it again, grab an outside, pull it in, grab an inside, pull it in, and I kind of turn the bowl like twice. I'll turn around and go like this. So every 30 minutes, 4 times. So 30 minutes from now we'll do it, 30 minutes after that we'll do it, and another 30 minutes after that we'll do it. So for a total of 2 hours, basically. 30, 30, and 30. 30, 30, 30, and 30. So that's how we do it. And the reason for that is that right now this dough is pretty moist, but there's lots of chunks of flour that are in the middle there, and we're going to need to have that yeast and everything kind of started to absorb the water and start to grow itself. And so we let it sit for 30 minutes, kind of let it do its thing, almost kind of like when we're doing veins with a syringe. We kind of have to let it wait for a minute to fill back up before we smush it. So, okay, you know the term. So we will just do that. So we'll get that good mix on there. We're going to put some plastic wrap on this, let it sit for 30 minutes, and then knead it with our spoon again. And then we will come back and I will show you how we do that. Alrighty. And then we're going to add the flour in there, but let's mix this first. And please don't pay attention to that thing on there. I forgot to zero out the jar, but I did measure the water when I put it in here, so that was 83. So now that starter and the water is all liquefied in there. And now I am going to add in my 83 grams of flour. Usually I measure this in by measuring cup, but I wanted to pre-measure it in a bowl so that you could see what was going on. And there's the 83 grams of flour in there. And we're going to mix that back up into there as well. Alrighty, so that's all kind of mixed together. And that 83 grams of water and that 83 grams of flour will be exactly what we took out today. And then this guy will be ready to bake with another day. You can leave this on the counter for a day if you'd like to kind of let it all kind of start to bubble again before you put it back in the refrigerator. That's kind of what I like to do. I like to I mean, it'll still work just as fine if you put it in the fridge right away, but I like to give my yeast and bacteria a head start by sitting on the counter and being kind of warm and letting it grow that way. Alrighty, we will see you back in a little less than 30 minutes to do our first kind of stretch and fold in that bowl, and we'll be right back. Alrighty, so it is the 4:30 stretch and fold. So remember, we started with the shaggy dough at 3:30, then we mixed it again at 4. Now we're mixing it again at 4:30. We'll do 5 and 5:30, and then we'll let it sit. So right now, this is the 4:30 stretch and fold. I'm going to stretch it, and you can see now it's starting to look a lot smoother than it did before. It's definitely not as shaggy, and it's really kind of starting to get a little smoother. And you can notice now that the dough isn't sticking as much to the spoon because now more of the flour and starter has been absorbed. So it's not as sticky as it was originally. Still sticky though. It's going to be sticky no matter what, but you know, it'll start to fill out and do its thing. This is really thick right now because the yeast have not started to do their bubbling yet. At the end, it's actually almost going to be kind of very fluffy because there'll be a lot more air pockets in there. So again, at least twice around with this. If you do a couple extra, it won't hurt it a bit. Alrighty, so now we're going to let that sit. We're going to put our plastic wrap back on there and let it sit until 5. Alrighty, Jess, it is 5 o'clock. So it is time for our second to last stretch and folds. Looking pretty smooth there, and it's starting to smell like sourdough. It's starting to get that smell on there. So the yeasties are kind of waking up in there and eating all that flour and water. Hoping I'm keeping you in the frame there. But you can see it's like really starting to smooth out. Again, we really want to get the bottom of that, you know, and kind of really pull it over. Basically, we're kneading it with the spoon. So really kind of get a good smush on there. Pull from the bottom, smush it into the middle. Pull from the bottom, smush it in the middle. And again, you really can't mess up this part too much. So if you didn't give it a good enough smush last time, no worries. We can totally give it good smushes now. Pull from the bottom, smush up. Pull from the bottom, smush up. You can even kind of pull it away from the sides, and if you can kind of, I want to kind of turn it upside down so I can really get the bottom part. But again, if you just pull from the sides and pull over, I've done that too. I'm just being extra special smushy today. But again, the minimum is twice around. And just pulling from the sides and pulling toward the middle. Doing great. Now, you might be wondering, well, Mare, what happened to that 20 grams of salt you had in that bowl before? When are we going to do that? We are going to do that at the very last stretch and fold. Because remember, we're kind of waiting for that flour and water to kind of absorb first before we put salt in there, because salt can sometimes make the rise not as high. If you put it in right away. So once this stuff gets a chance to autolyse is what they call it. Lyse, autolyse. It's just the fancy term for having the flour and the water and the yeast all get a chance to absorb before you put salt in there. So that very last one at 5:30, we're going to put the salt in there and then do our smushes again. And then we're going to let it sit for 12 hours, overnight in this case. And then we'll bake it in the morning. Alrighty. Alrighty, my friend, it's the last stretch and folds, and on this very special last stretch and fold, we are going to add our 20 grams of salt. So we're going to sprinkle this over the top, about half of it first, just so that we can kind of smush that in and incorporate it kind of evenly, okay? Alrighty, and then we're going to sprinkle the other half of the 20 grams of salt on there. Now you're like, man, holy cow, that is like the toughest dough to smush now, because all of that flour and stuff really is sticking to all that. And it's like, holy moly. But believe me, in the next 12 hours, this dough is going to be very holy. Oh, holy. I kind of really want to get that salt mixed in there. And if you really want to get your hands dirty, you can grab some gloves and kind of get in there and smush it too if you would like. I have done that as well. But this is fine too, because it is still kind of sticky. If you try to get in there with your hands, it'll be sticky. Kind of where these parts are kind of sticking out, there's still kind of salt covering them, so just kind of really smush that in there. I'm going to try to turn it over a little bit. There we go. Alrighty, my dear. Look at that lovely ball of dough. And don't worry if the salt isn't completely smushed in there. Now in the next 12 hours, this thing's going to just go. And at the very end, we're going to kind of shape it and put it in the Dutch oven with the sling in it. And it'll all come together. You'll see. It'll be amazing. So this is going to sit overnight for 12 hours. So just for you, I am actually going to wake up early. It is now the last stretch and fold at 5:30 p.m. So at 5:30 a.m. I am going to wake up, shape this loaf, and bake it, and then we'll have it ready. So, alrighty, I will see you tomorrow. Good morning. It is 5:30 and it has been 12 hours, and look at this big fluffy bubbly thing that's here in the bowl. So we are going to shape it into our loaf and get it ready for baking. You could do this just plain on your counter, or for easy cleanup, I have kind of a silicone mat here, but you could just do it flat on the counter too as well. I have got a pile of flour here, don't know if you can see it, but just a little baby pile here of flour to kind of help us make that roll. So what we're going to do is we're not going to smush this so much because we want to kind of keep some of the bubbles in there, but if you can see it, it's really bubbly. So going to take our hand, got a little bit of flour on there, and we're going to gently kind of just pull it away from the sides of the bowl. Still kind of a little sticky there, but just going to pull it away from the sides of the bowl. You can see that. Excuse me. Trying to make sure that you can see it all here. There we go. So we're going to kind of pull this in to kind of make it a kind of a rounder shape and sprinkle a little flour on it as we go. Kind of pull the sides in, almost kind of like how we were doing it in the bowl. Kind of pull the sides in a little bit. Try not to smush it, just pull our sides in a little bit. Gonna take some of this flour and just kind of put it around it a little bit. And now if I grab it and turn it over, you can kind of see how it's smooth on that side. And we'll just kind of plop it in some of the flour that's around there. Turn it over. Spread some more flour around. Just on the outside so that it's not so sticky. You can see that it's kind of a round thing here, but it's still kind of a little flat. So what we're going to do is we're going to start to smoosh it around so that it gets a little tighter. See how the bottom's like that? We're going to kind of smoosh the bottom there, almost so that it kind of looks like an octopus, you know. But what we're trying to do is just kind of make it a little tighter there on top. I don't know if you can see that. See, there's even a little air bubble there if you see it. And see, you can see how it's coming together on the bottom now. And whenever there's kind of a really sticky part, just kind of plop it down into the flour again, just to kind of make the outside not so sticky anymore. A little bit of flour on it. I'm getting my flour out of the way here. There we go. Okay, so now my loaf is pretty tight. It's a pretty tight bowl there. And I want it kind of tight on the top so that I can score it so that when it bakes and opens up, it'll have room to expand. So I've got my Dutch oven here. It's got the silicone trivet, which is amazing. Previously, I was using this with parchment paper in it, and it was just awful. It was a big mess and stuff like that. So this is really great because when the bread bakes, it pulls away from the sides, but it would always get stuck on the bottom. So this way you could just whoop, lift it right out. So we're going to put that right there on the side, and look at that. It's right, the perfect size to fit right there in the Dutch oven. I have got my clean kitchen scissors. And I am going to score it. And I think this time we might go 1, 2, so that it kind of creates a line there. And then we'll do 1, 2, 1, 2. So it's kind of like a little crisscross, and then when it opens, it'll kind of Alrighty, this is gonna go into a 425 degree oven, but when we put it in the oven right now, it's a cold oven. So we're gonna put this in the oven cold, set it to 425, and bake it for 55 minutes. Then after 55 minutes, we're gonna take this lid off and leave it in the oven with the lid off for the rest of it to brown for another 15. And then you'll have bread. Yay. Oh, one thing I do want to mention is that instead of having your oven rack right smack dab in the middle, you're going to want that rack to be one tick lower than the middle. So right now, the middle would be this 3rd rung, and we're going to have it down on the 4th rung there. Alrighty, it's been 55 minutes. So I'm going to take the lid off. Look at that beautiful thing. And we're going to let that brown for another 15 minutes. Okay, the moment of truth. Oh my God, look at that. It's so yummy. So the cool part about this is that this sling is awesome. This pot is really, really hot. So just lift it out with the sling. Bloop. And there is our crisscross loaf. Isn't that awesome? Perfectly cooked. Not too burnt on the bottom. Very nice. I have a cooling rack here, but if you don't have a cooling rack, you could always put it on the top of your stove grate and let it cool off there. Yay!